Okay, so we're back, and I was just about to do a demonstration on planting a tomato. So on our tomatoes is the only thing that we want to plant deep. We want 80% of this plant to be under the ground. So I give people a heart attack when I do this. But you're going to pinch off all of this foliage so that 80% of this plant is going to be put underground. So if 80% is going to be underground, we have to dig a deep hole. So we dig it deep. We put our Microlife in the bottom of the hole, and I put a whole handful. You will not burn with this. Put it in the bottom, give it a stir. This one's Viva Italia, so it's a saucing kind of tomato. I always stick my little tag right in the side so I can remember the variety. And we pull the soil back up around it so that big long tomato plant looks like a little tiny plant coming out of the soil right there. So we get it planted, and the next thing we want to do is we want to put some kind of a support. I use a cage because I get busy and I don't get to visit my plants very often in the springtime, so I put a cage on them at the time of planting, because 2-3 weeks this plant's going to be tall and it's going to need some support. Another great thing about caging them at the time of planting here in Houston is it may be 80 degrees one day and we could have frost the next day. So if you need to, you can throw a sheet over this and it protects it from getting frost on it. Remove the sheet whenever we warm up. So that's a little tomato planting demo. Really all you need to do at this point is water it. For the next few weeks you can water it around here. If you choose to do the Oya method, then you start filling up your reservoir for the Oya to water it in about 3 weeks. Next, I'm going to show you how to plant onions. Where'd my onions go? There they are. Onions are going to be a little bit different. We're going to put our fertilizer on top of our compost, just like this. You just chicken feed it out. You stick your finger in the soil, poke your onion down. It takes about 100 days for them to produce. So in 100 days, when your tomatoes are producing, your onions will be producing as well. You put these about every 4 to 6 inches apart. You can use your onions at any point. If you harvest them young like this, they'll be like green onions, like the scallions you buy at the store. And if you leave them in the ground for the full 100 days, you'll have big, juicy 10-15 white onions. Just like that. Onions are heavy feeders, so probably about every 4 to 6 weeks, you'll come with your Microlife and just chicken feed it right over the top. That's all there is to it. You'll know when they're ready because it will look like a big onion sitting on top of that soil. Next, I was going to do a pepper. This is a bell pepper, and things like peppers we don't want to plant deep. So the same level that the soil is here is how deep we want to do it. So you'll take it, always add your fertilizer in your hole, give it a little stir at the bottom, plant it so that that's at level. Now I didn't bring a tomato cage over here, but I cage my bell peppers because the peppers, and we want to give that support. So just a small tomato cage, one about half this size, is sufficient for your peppers. Now if you get started with your tomatoes and your peppers this weekend, and we do have frost, you need to protect them. Onions, you don't need to protect. They can take our winter just fine. I had mine planted before that freeze that we had, and they're just fine. Other things that we can plant now, of course, if you're looking at your veggie guide, there's a lot of things that you can start planting now. But we can still do kale, we can still do lettuce, beets, radishes, carrots. There's still a lot of things that we can do from seed. Do not be scared of seed. The biggest thing on the seed is don't plant them too deep. Just scratch the surface, put your seeds in, and they should germinate just fine for you. Herbs, we have a whole table full of fresh herbs that look amazing right now. So things like parsley, cilantro, we can go ahead and get those planted in our vegetable garden, and let those get going now so that you have your fresh herbs to use with your tomatoes and your onions in 100 days. Potatoes are another fun thing to plant, and I always do my potatoes in a container. So we have all different types of fun potatoes to plant. I took a Lesotho red, so this would be just like our new potatoes, and you cut it up. Look how dirty I am. You cut it up into fourths, and it starts to get pruny like this, but it also has our little eyes right here. So see that little green part coming out? That's where the plant's gonna grow. I do them in a container that's larger than this, but just for the purpose of this demo, you put a layer of compost in the bottom of your pot. You layer your potatoes in here, just like so. Can you see that?
I can see it.
Okay, and then we're just gonna take soil, and I just use compost. You can use mulch, you can use pine straw, all kinds of different stuff. They're not really picky. You can even use hay. And then we're just gonna put a few inches on top, so we do not fill the pot up. So that soil just comes to about right here. We're gonna wait a few weeks. Those potatoes are gonna start growing up. When they get about 6 inches tall, we're gonna take more soil and we're gonna cover them up just to where the tops of the green are poking out of the soil. And then we're gonna do that again. And you're gonna keep layering it. Every layer, you're gonna get a section of potatoes that roots. And then what's gonna happen is when you get to the top of this pot, you're gonna let them grow out. They're gonna grow and be beautiful. Then they're gonna start dying out. When they die out, then what you wanna do is take your pot, dump it over, and start harvesting your potatoes. So we gotta do that now because they are about a 100-day crop and we wanna get them going before it gets too hot. So around February 14th is ideal time to plant these guys. You don't have to protect them if we have any winter, is they won't be emerged by the time frost comes, if we do get frost again. If y'all have any questions at any point, go ahead and start asking them. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and plant these herbs here. So this method right here of planting would be kind of the square foot garden effect. That's just putting a lot in a small space. At home, I have more space, so I don't have to cram the stuff as much, but you'll be amazed at how many plants you can get into a small space. So we probably have about 30 to 40 different types of tomatoes in now, and over the next few weeks, we'll get more and more in. You can also plant things like nasturtiums and marigolds in your vegetable garden to ward off different insects. The marigolds will help with root knot nematodes. The nasturtiums will help with aphids, and then they're edible as well. As far as little critters getting in your garden, if we're following the schedule and planting things at the right time, you'll have a lot less insects. So that's the most important thing to controlling insects in your garden. The biggest problem that I find in my raised garden beds is fire ants, because they want to come up where the moisture is, and they'll make little mounds in your garden. You don't want to use a lot of chemicals in your vegetable garden. So Nature's Creation has this amazing drench and this little powder that you can use in the garden to kill active mounds in the garden at the time. So just make sure that you put something that has natural ingredients in it if you're going to be treating for ants in your garden. As far as aphids go, that's another issue that can come up in your garden. Use ladybugs for aphids. Fungal problems can be a problem, but they're typically not early in the season. As we get later into the season and we start getting more humidity, make sure you're not watering the foliage of your plants. Water down at the surface, or use something like that Oya to water with. That will cut down on the amount of fungal spores that you have. If you do get fungus, bring your leaves in and let us check it out for you. Any questions, Cal?
Somebody asked, why is everything stuck on every 4 to 6 weeks? And I guess they mean like unfeeding and...
Oh, everything 4 to 6 weeks. That's just kind of rule of thumb. If everything looks like it's growing well and you had fed at the time of planting, and 4 weeks later everything looks great, then I would wait that 6 weeks before you feed. But 4 to 6 weeks is just kind of rule of thumb. Just kind of let your plants tell you. When they start looking hungry, give them some food. And you can tell by the foliage color. Nice green glossy leaves, you don't need to feed. If you feel like things are just kind of looking yellowed out a little bit, then go ahead and feed them. And always use an organic fertilizer in your vegetable garden. I mean, that's why you're growing your own, because you want healthier plants. You want it safer for your family. So make sure you use a high quality organic. We just really love the Microlife because they're locally made, organic with very high quality products in them. Another thing that I do to help ward off insects is use kelp meal. And I mix it in this little sprayer right here. It's 1 teaspoon in this sprayer, and you pump it up and you can spray everything. Anything from the ocean that you can put in your garden is going to be beneficial. I did this about once every 2 to 3 weeks, if I remember, and that really helps to ward off things like spider mites. Spider mites don't like seaweed and kelp meals, so that really helps thicken the cell wall so that those little sucking insects can't come and do some damage. Another thing that I do, I just don't have any in stock right now, is like a pine mulch, like a pine straw mulch would be good to put on top to resist weeds and maintain your moisture in your garden as well. Okay, awesome. Well, we are here. It is beautiful. We are loaded up on vegetables and herbs. If you have any questions, just come holler at us. Thanks.